Every patch of grass has the potential to become a skyscraper. All you need is to put it under construction. As Vocalistic says, we have a massive, massive, massive interview today. But before I get carried away, you know the drill. Let's do housekeeping. Click on the subscription button, click on that like button, and every time so that you get notified when we drop episodes, please click on the notification button. As well, this is our very last episode of Under Construction SA for the year 2022. So thank you for every subscriber. Thank you for people who have been watching. We're going out with a bang. So today's guest, her name is Jasmine. She's a champion for for creative English, for creative inclusion, equity, and opportunity in diversity, in the diversity arena in arts and culture. Solid knowledge in developing new talent, training programs with proven results, and a dedication to ID. She's an advisor, stakeholder, executive, culture influencer with over 2 decades in the media industry. Jasmine, welcome to Under Construction SA.
Thank you, Under Construction SA, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
So, Jasmine, for someone who, maybe for the South African people who might not know you, how would you describe yourself? How would you introduce yourself? Besides what I've said, what are some of the things that you can add to what I've said about you?
Yeah, so I'm a multimedia broadcaster. My main job is in television, but I've been lucky enough to dabble in radio, some print press columns, some digital press columns. I've worked across the music and the media industry my whole career, mainly in television, but because I was at MTV for so long and I've worked in arts and entertainment for so long, people see me as being both across media and the music industries. I'm a champion for diversity. Unknowingly, I think when you're a woman of color, an Asian person or a black person or anyone who is othered and that hasn't been white in your past, you end up in your companies being parts of committees that are for inclusion and diversity. And so I've always championed other people who look and sound like me and come from backgrounds like myself. And I've been lucky enough to be a guest at the table of black pop culture for my whole life, because where I was growing up there were lots of Asian, black and white kids, but because I wasn't Asian in the traditional sense of being Asian, my parents are Zoroastrian, and I'm sure most people haven't heard of that, but Zoroastrians are the original Persians that used to be in Iran before the Muslims took over. So we are like refugees all around the world. So where I grew up, even though there were Asian communities, they used to say, oh, well, you can't play with us as a child because you're not a real Indian. You're not Sikh, Hindu or Muslim. So it was the West Indian families, the black families from the Caribbean, whose children who were at school with me, who used to say, oh, no, come to our house after school. You know, we can hang out with you. And so that's why I've always been a guest at the seat of black pop culture, and I'm always thankful for it.
Wow, it's an amazing story. And I want to pick it up from where you speak about not being accepted, you know. So as a young child, what are you thinking? How are you dealing with that at a very young age, experiencing that? Here we'd call it racism.
Do you know, my parents split up when I was about 6, and my mum sort of ran away with me to escape my dad. And so I was already an only child from a dysfunctional family. So I think survival for a young child at that point is just surviving and getting through the next day. And you're always on high alert, and you're always thinking, what's going to go wrong next, and always ready for the next drama to happen. So honestly, when kids in this playground don't want to play with you because you're not a real Asian, that's the least of your problems. I was just welcomed into the fold of the arms of the black community where I lived, and you know, that they were really, really welcoming. So culturally, whether it was about music or food or language or slanguage or just joy and laughter, I was able to really, you know, be welcomed into those families. And so I didn't really feel like I was being rejected. I came from an area where we had lots of working class families and there was a lot of dysfunction everywhere. So it just felt normal to me. And actually, my childhood was fun, you know, apart from the normality of dysfunction, which you don't really understand is dysfunction until you're older. I felt it was quite fun.
Also, you didn't have any problems with that. It's good to hear that.
No, I mean,
So,
you know, rejection as children in playgrounds and things like that is normal. And frankly, I got accepted by the coolest, freshest, flyest, warmest, joyous, most trend-setting community in the globe. So why would I
yeah,
complain?
yeah, there's no need to complain. Um, I want to take it a bit back to you speaking about you being an advocate for diversity, not adversity. You see, it's not our language. So
What do you have a word for it out there? Like, do you ever have like, I don't know, white folks or other folks that are non-black come and they want to be a part of everything, or not? They already kind of did that chapter in history and that doesn't exist anymore.
no, they are. We do have people. I actually have a couple of friends. So, but hey, South Africa's just a different. South Africa is really tension. So yeah, it's just that I don't want to go too much into that. I just wanted to ask about the diversity and the the internship programs, right? That when you are coming into the game, when you're coming into the media space, at the beginning, are you already thinking that this is why I'm here? Is that what informs you going there? Are you already thinking, do you have already that mindset, or you didn't have it?
No, when I first started working at my second job was at MTV, and they were all lovely people, but they didn't come from the same backgrounds and have the same music taste as me. So I was growing up in an area where we were listening to American R&B and rap like Jodeci, Mary J. Blige, De La Soul, Public Enemy. So we were coming up on that, and everyone at MTV at the time was into rock, indie, and punk music. So they would say things like, "Oh, hip hop and R&B, that stuff's just going to be here for a quick minute. It's not going to last. It's just a quick trend. You know, it's not got any longevity." And I'd be thinking, this is really weird because where I'm growing up, this is what we listen to on the radio, on pirate radio, at parties, the streets, the cars are pumping that music. And I couldn't understand it. So when I started then hiring interns and work experience at MTV, I made sure it was people like me from places that I was growing up in, because I just wanted that extra support at work to say, no, actually hip hop and R&B is not just a phase, it's something that's here to stay.
Wow, that's amazing. So why would you say it's important for you to bring people of like minority groups or who are like you to those tables? Why did you see it as important? Because you could have just said, I've made it, I don't care, let me move and develop these internship programs.
Well, I think I'd seen people who were older than me obviously get into places and not say much. And I think their journey was very different. They had to keep their mouth shut, or they had to stay tight-lipped about things. And that was what their generation did. But I think they lay the path for my generation to come through and make a little bit more change. And the reason it was important was because everyone who runs media, music, any companies or businesses when I've grown up has come from the Oxford, Cambridge background, quite wealthy, quite middle class, very privileged. And when you come from those places, you don't often understand what it's like to come from other places. And if you think of the majority of the country that I live in Britain, most people are working class. But if you looked at the media back then, it didn't represent working class people. It was very privileged and assumed lots of things that just didn't make any sense to working class people. So for me, it's been important to bring in people from different backgrounds and diverse groups and underrepresented groups. I hate the word diversity now, actually. It's like a bad word in my head. You know, my favorite word for it is underrepresented groups. We're underrepresented in places where we should be overrepresented because we are the majority. And it was important because the media that we consume should reflect the country that we live in. And if we don't have those people in our newsrooms making decisions about which stories we cover or who speaks to those people, you get a very skewed, very unbalanced, very unjust, very stereotypical, unfair view of certain stories. So when I was coming up in the newsrooms that I was working in, if you were talking to someone who was a musician that was a classical music person, they would treat them with lots of reverence and respect. But if you were speaking to a rapper or a reggae or a dancehall artist, there would be some really cliched, stereotypical questions around crime or violence or, you know, just negativity. And I couldn't understand it because I also, as a Saturday school, as a child, I went to ballet school up the road. So I was really able to see both sides of these worlds. And my ballet school world was very privileged. People had never had the idea of what it might be like to come from a working class area. And then I'm growing up in my working class area going, wow, these guys don't know what it's like to live down here. So it was always trying to bring those two worlds together and say, hey guys, you need to know about each other because the worlds that you live in don't represent the whole picture. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I was about to ask if you guys can hear the noises in my background because it's very noisy where I'm at. So I'm just trying to find out. You can't hear nothing.
No.
Okay, because it's really distracting me. I'm really worried if
no,
it's
I
affecting
can't hear anything.
Yeah, it's affecting the video quality. But anyway, and for me, I think we bring you here on Under Construction because you resonate with what we're trying to do. I think we had, you are the second person who's senior that I'm having because I look at you and there's a lady called Zeki. She's a national marketing director for Ferrari here in SA. You guys represent very few people who really are about impact more than just about, the fame. And obviously the fame, the money and the work, yes, important in that side. But you really resonate with our story of Under Construction SA because we are trying to, what we are trying to do, or what I'm trying to do as Thuso is to say, you know what, there are people who are not represented here in South Africa, specifically in South Africa. And for us, they're in the rural areas, right? And they lack opportunities. And we want to one day go and reach out to them and them being able to hear such conversations, such things, and information that they can absorb because we're here for information to inform. Because in South Africa, we are the most unequal country in the world. It's a fact. So it's really bad. So our vision, you resonate with what we're trying to do. We're looking to align with people that are really for, you know what, let's give young people a chance. Let's train them. Let's teach them. Instead, because there's a thing of where you're expected to have a job experience, but where are you gonna get it if you're not given an opportunity? And I like what one of the ladies who was a presenter in South Africa, who left the entertainment industry, said instead of making it easy for people, because I always believed in making it easy for people, you afford people the opportunity. So I feel like you are one of those people, and I want to big you up for that. For me, that's very important. People like you, I don't want to look back and say I never appreciated people, because you are very, very, very important in the grand scheme of things, because you are the voice to the voiceless. You give people opportunities. And I think I've read the stories to people. Some people would not be where they are if they were not given an opportunity. Everyone needs someone to believe in them. Everyone needs someone to open a door. And then you resonate with what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to get into the media space. So, but enough about that. I wanted to ask you about your first job, right? When you get your first presenting gig, your first breakthrough into the entertainment industry. What is the process?
So before you ask your question, can I just say thank you for your kind words that you just said now, You know, there are lots of people like me out there that are all striving for that change. And even where you are in South Africa, some of my former colleagues who used to live and work with me here in London, who are now in SA, people like Dylan Khan. Do you know Dylan? I don't know if you know him, but I can connect you. He's always striving to help put people on. He works for MTV and Viacom. Then there are people who come between Britain and South Africa who are much more entrenched in the South African and the African music and work scene. People like Taponiswa Mavunga and her sister Danai. So there are lots and lots of people who are straddling media and music, who are doing this great work on bringing young people through the industry, whether that's in South Africa or London or joining the both together. So there are lots of us out there.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's because I like the fact that you corrected me, because when you see something, when you're
Oh, you've frozen. Uh-oh.
we say everyone is corrupt, I'm like,
Oh, you froze then for
am I still
about
frozen?
10 seconds. Say that again, the last 10 seconds.
Okay,
Will you be editing this later? Or will
yes.
it be playing? Okay.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But
Okay.
the plan is to edit. But I was asking if oh, I'm losing my okay, now I remember what I was about to say. I was asking for that, I always argue with people who say everyone is corrupt, that everyone is corrupt. I'm like, you've been so much exposed to corruption. You live under the illusion that and not everyone. There are a lot of people who are doing right things, who are doing it the right way, who are rich and doing and really, really doing it the honest and right way and have integrity. So when you did that, when you said to me that no, there are a lot of people, you just reminded me of something that I always say to people, and that's what I'm saying. Thank you for that and for just correcting me on that. So I just wanted, like I was going into before we spoke about the many people, and which I look forward to connecting with people like Dylan. I want to know about your entrance into the industry. What was the process like? What was the journey like? What are the obstacles that you're facing before you get your big break and be on TV and appear on TV?
So my journey was that I was studying like most students, and when I did my GCSEs, I was thinking, oh, am I going to go to work? And my teacher said, oh, you like drama and music and dance. Do you know you can do A levels? That's the next exam up. And I was like, okay, I'll do A levels in those same subjects. And then when I was finishing my A levels, another same teacher who had seen something in me said, oh, you can do a degree in these subjects. So I've always been lucky enough to have teachers that have pushed me on to the next educational path when I wasn't going to do the education. I was just going to go out and work. And then after I did my degree, obviously I was trying to look for work. And this was in the old days before the internet, and we didn't have just an email to send people asking for work experience. So I had to actually type letters, print them out, put them in an envelope, put a stamp on them and post them to all these different TV companies, because I knew I wanted to work in TV production. And I had a thick book and it said addresses of TV production companies in England. And I wrote the same letter, obviously, to lots and lots of them, posted them out. And for many years after I got my first job, I had a drawer at my mum's house, which had all my rejection letters, because there's a pile of rejection letters that say, thank you for your CV. There's nothing at the moment, but we'll keep you on record. If something comes up, we'll let you know. And I used to keep them all just to show that I had the letterhead with the logo of that company that had said no for now. And then it was when I was abroad, because my dad's from Kenya, from Mombasa, and I was on my summer holidays and we were in Mombasa and my dad was here at home in England, and he called up Mombasa very excited. He said, oh, a TV company's called. They said they have work experience for you. You're on holiday. You'll have to come back. And my mum was like, she can't come back. We're in Kenya. She was like, just call them back and ask them if they can give it to her on another date. So my dad basically calls them, arranges for me to come back, and then I get work experience at a TV company. company, and they're called Planet 24. And at the time in the 90s, Planet 24 made two of the biggest shows on British TV. One was called The Big Breakfast and one was called The Word. The Big Breakfast was obviously in the morning. It was very rock and roll and superstars and exciting breakfast every day. And The Word was late at night on a Friday, and it was the biggest youth culture show of the 90s. And it had music and Hollywood film stars and interviews, and it was just really, really exciting. So I ended up being a work experience person at this company, and that involved making endless cups of teas and coffees and photocopying scripts and meeting people at the door and bringing them into the green room. But that was called being a runner, and it was the best job ever. And we still have runners in the TV industry. And I say to young people all the time, when you're a runner, in your head, you're thinking, why am I making someone's tea and coffee? But it's the best time to learn, because you are going into all these different spaces in the company. You're picking up and soaking up all this information in the gallery, in the studio, on the set, in the office, and you suddenly see what all the jobs are. You get to talk to lots of different people. So being a runner was how I started off. And in the same company, I was then, oh, sorry, my phone just went off. In the same company, I was then offered a job as a floor assistant. So a floor assistant on The Big Breakfast basically helps with the camera, with the props, with the cue cards. And it was my job. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me just get rid of this. My apologies. And so my job as a floor assistant was to make sure the presenters had all their cue cards, everything was ready, and you had to be organized. And I'll never forget the biggest lesson I learned. Oh my God, I did such a mistake. But everyone makes mistakes when they first come up in their jobs, don't they, right? So in the studio was Wesley Snipes. You've heard of Wesley Snipes, right? So Wesley Snipes is in the studio, Spike Lee's in the studio, and I am so fangirling, thinking, oh my God, Wesley Snipes and Spike Lee are in the studio. What's going on here? It was incredible. And I literally couldn't get concentrate on what the work was that I was doing. And I ended up dropping the prop for the next segment. And my cameraman basically put the camera on me, and the presenter, Chris Evans, said, oh, we were supposed to do this thing next, but Jasmine was supposed to have something ready and she didn't have it ready. And the whole of the viewers were able to see me because the camera went like that on me. And I was like so embarrassed. It was like shaming in front of the whole country. All my friends had seen it. Everyone had seen it. It was just totally, totally embarrassing. So I never made that mistake again. And it was one of the best. And the thing is, now, if you did that to a young person, people would say, oh, that was a bullying thing. They shouldn't have humiliated you on national TV. But honestly, it was the best lesson I ever had, because it was so deep and embarrassing that I never did anything like that again. But I am not the same. When I try to give feedback to young people these days, I try to do it in private, so I'm not embarrassing them. So that's how I got my first step into television. And then I was a floor assistant. Then the same company had a job as a presenter for their new show called The Word. And this part really was an accident. I wanted to work in production, and then one of the researchers said, hey, you're really funny, you should do the presenter's audition. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to be a presenter. Women like me, from my background and stuff, we're not on telly. It just wasn't normal for me. So they tricked me into doing this audition. They said, we've got 6 finalists for the final audition. We're going to pair them up in twos, but one of them is now dropped out. Didn't you do something at college or university to do with drama? Could you step in and just basically fill in the gaps and do the audition? And I said, oh yeah, no problem. And I really didn't think that it was a real thing. So I'm there in the audition. They put us in pairs. We're doing these questions with each other and interviewing each other. And that was the end of it. I never thought twice about it. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a memo in my email at work, and my boss said, can you come and see me after the show this morning? Because we'd finished working on The Big Breakfast. And I was terrified, because as a floor assistant, the big boss who runs the company would never be calling me for any meeting unless he was going to fire me or something. And I was convinced that I was being fired, because one of the presenters, Paula Yates, she used to get brand new flowers every day, new expensive flowers. And so my job as a runner was to throw those flowers in the bin. And I used to bring them back home for my mum, because I used to say, well, I won't throw them in the bin, I'll give them to my mum. So I was like, oh my God, my boss is calling me to fire me because he's saying that I'm stealing flowers or something, right? So I then get to my boss's office and he's walking around and the other two bosses are just sitting at the table like this. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm about to be fired. And he says, Jasmine, he says, I need you to go to your desk and I need you to clear it. My heart starts racing. And he says, I need you to leave the building. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've broken out into a cold sweat thinking this is my first exciting TV job and I'm about to get fired. And then he says, I need you to leave the building and get yourself a solicitor. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to fire me and take me to court for stealing flowers, right? And he says, no, because you are now the new presenter of the word. And I was just so confused as a young person thinking, what is he talking about? And he said, no, he said, you're the new presenter of the word. And so it was a really strange way that I got my first job into television and then just worked harder than I could because I didn't want them to let me go, then jumped into wherever they asked me. I was just really eager to make them all like me and not let me go. And that's been my character throughout my whole career. I want everyone I work with to like me. I want them to say she's too valuable to let go, because as we know, with any company that you work in, there's always redundancies and restructures every couple of years. And I think when I was younger, I didn't really understand that. I thought, oh, this is an unusual thing. This company is having a restructure. But now I'm older, I understand that companies have a restructure and refresh their staff and their talent very regularly. So when they do that, I don't want to be the first person to be let go. So I made sure that I was multi-skilled in lots of things. So even though my thing was, producing or presenting, I would always make sure I can direct, I can do voiceovers, I can edit a bit, I can do PR and marketing, I can do call sheets. So when you can do multitasking at everything, when they have a restructure, you're not going to be the one that they let go first. So that was how I got into TV and how I've stayed in TV.
Wow, what an amazing story to hear that you started off as like writing a pile of letters to different people and getting rejected, going to be a runner and working and seeing and absorbing and just doing the minimal tasks. And to the advice that you're giving right now for us to say, you know what, make yourself valuable, maybe know a bit of everything. It's an inspirational story because we as young people need to hear stories like this to say, if you make sure that when they fire people, they don't think of you. And this is how. Not that, because some people can say, make sure that you are valuable. But how? But I like the fact that you broke it down to say you made sure that you knew a little bit of editing, directing, you did this and that and that. And that's what I'm trying to say to young people, that with this platform, we're trying to get into what exactly do I need to do as Thuso. So big up for that, and thank you.
Okay. So you're called under construction. And when I'm speaking to young people about constructing their personalities, they are under construction for the rest of their lives, for their careers, for adulthood, and under construction for success. And so there's a few tips I always leave them with. And I say to them, you will always be under pressure your whole lives. There'll be financial concerns, family concerns, friendships. There'll be lots of other things going on in the background. But when you step in the door of your workplace, you need to let that go and compartmentalize it in another part of your brain, come back to it in another hour or two. But when you're with your people that you work with, be consistently delightful. People just want to work with other people who are easygoing, chilled, relaxing, that they feel comfortable around. And then the other thing that I always say to them is, remember, never take anything personally. By the time someone would snap at me or it'd be a bit rude or a bit cold, I would take personally, and I'm quite a sensitive person, and I'd be like, oh my God, what have I done? Why have they got a problem with me? And actually, it's never about you. When someone else is being a little bit of an arse, they're being an arse because there's something going on with them and they're projecting it onto you. So another phrase I often use with young people that I mentor is, he who is being a pain is carrying pain. And once you understand that, you're a lot more sympathetic and empathetic to your fellow co-workers or people around you. And then the other thing that I say to them is, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So think about that. If you're spending time outside of work or whenever in your life with people who are positive and ambitious and happy, you will soak that up and continue to be that. If you are spending time with people who are negative and bring you down and make you feel bad, that's what you're going to project. So whatever you surround yourself with, you are going to end up being. So surround yourself with winners. There's so much that you can do when you are under construction, but I wish someone had told me that when I was younger.
So I like what you were saying, because I'm one person who, for me personally speaking, I wear my heart on my sleeve. If there's something wrong with me, people tend to pick it up, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a bubbly person. And when I'm down, 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 maybe I don't come across as, I'm not that, I won't be somber, but you'll see that the loudness is not that. You're like, why today is too so quiet? I will not be unpleasant to anyone. I'll greet you, but I'll be saying hi, how are you guys? And then I'm in my corner, whatever I'm doing. And it's very difficult. And you speaking about taking things personally. And I think it's a lot of things that a lot of people have to learn, because it's hard. Like you're saying, I'm a sensitive person. It's hard not to take things personally when someone is rude to you. Like, what did I do? Where does this come from? But they should, especially if it's an older person, for me, especially, they should know better. I'm like, they're my leader, they are my senior. How could they, And sometimes I think I listen to Simon Sinek. He speaks about having empathy, and when our leaders are having bad days, whether it's the CEO or whoever's managing you, just go to them and say, "How are you? Can I, if you need anything, can I help you with you?" You reminded me of that, and through listening to him, I've sort of learned how to lead, even when I'm not leading, like to take responsibility, even if I'm an intern, even if I'm at a lower position. So I think that lesson is very, very crucial for us. Thank you for that as well. So you went to Viacom, and I think that's the longest time you've spent, 12 years with it. I'd love to know what made you stay that long at Viacom MTV.
Yeah, well, I come from the generation where we're sandwiched a little bit. You know, my parents' generation used to say, if you stay at a company for 40 years, that's a great thing. It means you've had a great career. And then, of course, the generation now says, oh, every couple of years I change jobs, right? So we've really changed the way that we think about work life and our careers. But why I stayed there for so long was because every couple of years I had a different job. So when I started at Viacom and MTV, I was an MTV news presenter, which meant that I was only in front of the camera, reading other people's words and doing what I was told. But then I quickly realized that actually being a presenter is great because people know you and you're famous for 5 minutes. But actually, the real power lies in the producer's hands, because the producer writes the script, helps book the artist, dictates the direction of the show. So I was like, I've done this for a year now. I'm going to want to be a producer and write my own words. So then I started producing and presenting. And then I realized that even though I was producing and presenting, now the vision wasn't what I wanted it to be, because the director or the camera crew were doing shots that didn't match the R&B and hip hop stories I was talking about. They were used to doing rocks and hard clash. So they were doing zooms on cameras like this on a smooth R&B artist. And I was thinking, that's so weird. That doesn't make any sense. So then I was directing and producing and presenting my own stuff. So every couple of years I would add another job title to my resume and my CV, and I would be going up that ladder, but I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, I was just being a control freak, thinking, right, I want my story to be the way I want my story to be. I need to level up on these skills. So I was slowly adding to my CV, and eventually I was the head of my department, MTV News International. After that, I was the head of a couple of dance music channels, MTV Bass and MTV Dance. So I was there for 12 years, but I was in a different role, doing different things, very different things every couple of years. And honestly, Viacom was always ahead of the game, and it still is. It was always about inclusion and diversity. It was always about risky, provocative programming. It was always about, you could see something trending today, you could do a pilot on it the next day, and it would be on air within a week. And then I went to other companies which are so much slower. You know, they'd have an idea one day, and a year and a half later, the show would come out, and by that time it was out of trend already. So Viacom was a very, you know, impulsive, topical, exciting place for new young people to really make their mark. And I felt the leaders there were really, really good at that.
Oh, I like, what I picked up when you spoke about the fact that how you moved from being a presenter into the behind the scenes. It's one of the things that pushed you was the camera shots and how they were taking and it speaks to the word passion. That's what I'm picking up, because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not picking up certain things. You're just doing it. By the way, you're not growing, you're stagnant. You end up as people that you said are the first to be retrenched because there's no passion to that. And I want to know for you, how important is passion in whatever one does?
Wow, that's a great question, Thuso. I mean, for me, passion lies at the heart of everything that I do. And I think if you wake up in the morning and you are passionate about your job, you bounce out of bed. And honestly, I might not live in a castle. I may not wear Rolexes on my arm. That's not what's important to me. But the one thing I do is I bounce out of bed every morning wanting to do my job. And I always say to people, I do for my work what most normal people call fun. So when people say things to me like, what's the worst thing about your job? I'm like, nothing, because the worst part of my job doesn't even compare to some people's best part of their jobs. You know, I'm so privileged that I work in an industry where, to us, a bad day is a shoot being late, or spending hours in an edit suite, or working on an idea that never makes it to air. That's a bad day. Like, that's not a bad day. That's just creative stuff not happening. Things change all the time. So passion for your role gets you out of bed in the morning. It keeps you striving. It keeps you in the industry. And you can tell when people are not passionate about their jobs, you know? Like, the one thing that I notice about different streamers and regular traditional companies is, in traditional companies, we've gotten used to the fact that you can have a team, and that team can have 10 people in it. 3 of them might be high performing, 5 of them might be just like mediocre, get the job done, turn up at work and do it. And then 2 of them might be, oh, well, we have to chase you around to make sure you get your job done, right? Traditional companies have a bit of all of those personalities, but the streamers, when you think of the FANG companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, they don't tolerate that. They have high achieving workers who are the top 2 in those people. So they would rather pay you above the odds and give you a high salary, knowing that everyone across the business works at the highest possible level, rather than chase around people who are not doing their work averagely. And often they have a phrase that says, at Netflix, we're not a family. You know, families don't work together. We're a team. And if you're not part of the top playing team, you're off the bench. And I kind of like that. Now, not everybody likes that. You know, passion makes me want to be better than the other teams. Passion makes me want to get higher ratings. When I go to interview pop stars or movie stars, makes me want to not do the same interview that those 10 other people in the room are going to do with that person. I say that person's going to come away from my interview going, wow, she was good. She said some stuff that I didn't even know. She told me some stuff about my own career that I'd forgotten. She told me some stuff about my career that was really interesting that no one else brought up. So passion makes you competitive. It keeps you in the game. It makes you jump out of bed every morning. And eventually that passion will keep you in for longer and help you elevate. Like, it's the perfect career.
You know, again, I love it because as you were speaking right now, it just came to my mind that passion makes you a hard worker. It comes, being a hard worker becomes natural when you're passionate about something, because you go above board.
Have you heard the phrase, the harder I work, the luckier I get?
Yes.
Yeah,
I've heard
that,
that
that
phrase.
that is based on passion, isn't it? Because really,
Yeah,
some people look at me, and I know a lot of people, even in my own friendship group in the past, have said, "Oh, you're so lucky. You always fall on your feet." And there's a sense that they're hating, or they're slightly jealous, or they think things have come easy to me. And I want to say to them, hold on a minute. Nothing has come easy to me. I have clung on to my career and my life like this all the time, not to let go of it. And at the heart of that is what you just said, passion.
yeah. You know, again, you speak about something I'm really, really passionate about. People, when they see an artist, because I'm passionate about hip hop, I'm always involved in hip hop debates wherever I am and speak industry, especially here at home. They know me. They're like, wherever he is, we are arguing about the entertainment industry. We're arguing about South African hip hop because I'm really, really passionate about local hip hop. And sometimes people will be like, there's a rapper in South Africa, the biggest rapper in South Africa. I don't know if you know him, Casper Nyovest. And we were just arguing with other, there's AKA. So AKA fans like, but Casper has it easy, was a cheese boy. That's why he has all these things. I'm like, Casper literally came into the game with nothing. So you remind me of the conversation of where I hate it. I hate it when people make it seem as if someone that has made it in life, and I think in South Africa we have it a lot, is lucky. Or even me, someone at church once said, Thuso, but you people love you. I'm like, you think it was always like, there was a time when no one thought Thuso would be the Thuso that he is. Now you see everyone at church speaking to me, think I was the underdog. I had to work. That's why I love underdog in the underdog story. And that's why under construction is basically expressing who Thuso is in different areas where Thuso was cast out, was an outcast. No one looked at him. Thuso had to move to the rural area. So I understand being there. I saw the condition. Now you're in the city and you get to see, and you're like, oh, these people are not really exposed. I need to go back there. Now I understand why I had to go there and see these things, stuff like that. I know now I'm running off a tangent, and this is not about me.
No,
Uh,
no, but you bring up some really important points, because you know what? When you work hard, you make it look easy. And because of the social media industry, we make everything look easy. We only show people the best bits of our lives that are curated and filtered. So we only show we're really happy, we're doing great things, we're having fun, we're always smiling, we look fresh, we look super dope, look at our outfits, look at where we are. But we're not showing everybody the 360-degree life of our real experiences. So when you say, we're passionate and we have arguments about rappers and blah blah blah, remember, those things are not arguments, they're debates, and they're based on passion. And that's why when I say to young people, when you're thinking of a story for your career, think about the things that people have often said are negative about you and spin them into a positive. So often when I was a child, people would say at school, my school report, my teacher would say, she gets her work done really quickly, but then she's chatty and she distracts all the other children, right? She's talking and blah, blah, blah. And then, and the idea of being chatty and nosy was sent as a negative comment to me. But everything in journalism is about being chatty and nosy. And actually, chatty and nosy means conversational and curious. So don't ever let anyone who says anything about your personality is argumentative or whatever, spin it into the positive part of that conversation.
I'm laughing because of teachers, because I had the same problem. I remember there was a time at school, the teacher was so tired of me that she took me to her uncle. The uncle made me brush my teeth with soap. I don't forget this. But now when I'm looking back at it, because they were white people, now when I'm looking back at it, I'm like, hi. But then that's a story for another day. So, and because I was loud, even when I moved to the rural areas, the rural part, when I moved from that school to rural areas, when they moved me, the teachers, when they received the report card, they said I climbed tables like a baboon. When I like a baboon. Now when I look back, now I'm like, because I was a kid, I didn't know the politics, right? The teachers, when they read in the rural areas, apparently they laughed. My grandmother came back to tell me that what they thought. But when I look back, I'm like, but what God had put in me, because that's what I'm doing now. It requires me to be because I love traveling, I love being all over the place, I love people, I enjoy speaking, and I was always beaten for standing up in class. And now I understand why, because when I look back, those things were pointing to what I'm supposed to do. The kind of career that I'm going to go into requires me to be all over the place, requires me to be loud, it requires me to be this funny person, because even when the teachers would come and like, we don't have a class list, but I know Thuso, you're the first one come. They had a duster. In South Africa, they hit us with the dust. So I relate so much
and we don't tell young people enough that the personality that they have is enough. Whatever they have, there is a job for them that leans in and reflects the personalities that they often have. Often we tell young people, you got to change your personality, you got to be this, you got to be that. And actually, yes, all of us need to finesse and file down our personalities so they're workable with other human beings, right? But you don't have to change who you are. Whatever your characteristics and personality is, there is a great job fit for you out there, and you just need to find that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, this story can go on for days. We can. There's a lot of pointers, but I want to move on to another question that I have about you spoke about being with Wesley Snipes. I forgot the other names you mentioned, but now you find yourself where you're surrounded by these stars, Jay-Z, Mariah Carey, Eminem, whoever, like the big names. In the moment, because you're working there, how are you feeling? And for me, the most important thing is, what have you picked up that makes the Rita Oras, the Stormzy's, what have you picked up that sets them apart, that makes them more, I don't want to say special, but that makes them cut above the rest, right? When it comes to what they're doing, and they're not the average Joe. What are the traits? What have you picked up by observing those stars?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really insightful question, because when I was first starting out in this industry, a lot of the people I worked with have been, because it's arts and entertainment, they've often been famous celebrities. And I was on the side of the journalists, and the journalists were always a little bit kind of sneery. We sit back and we go, oh, look at those celebs and their poor lives and all this. And we were a little bit kind of cutting. And it wasn't until I was friends with a few of them that I came up with and started working with, that I started realizing that, wow, we've been unnecessarily bitchy and we've been trained to be gossipy about them, when actually, one, they're real human beings. Two, they work bloody hard for what they do. And the thing that sets them apart is they have resilience. And we don't talk about resilience enough, but whether you are famous or non-famous, resilience, meaning the power of keeping going when things are bad, when things go, I can't do it anymore, I have no money left, I have no strength left, I have no passion left, I don't know what the next step is. The resilience for all these famous people is knowing what the next step is and taking those opportunities and refusing to give up, because not all of those people are always the best singer in the world or the best rapper in the world, but they surround themselves with positive thoughts, positive people, positive actions, and they make sure that they're doing every single thing to stay in the game at all times. They want to be relevant. And remember, with famous people, we sneer at them a little bit. We say, oh, you're rich, you've got big flash cars and flash houses, and you fly around on jet planes. But ultimately, at the heart of them, when you cut them, they are humans and they're very sensitive. And the one thing celebrities do for us all the time is they wear their heart on their sleeve. So when a rapper is telling you about his life, or a rapper is telling you about her come up, or a famous person is telling you about their love life on their songs, that's their real personal stuff they're giving to the world. None of us are as open or as brave or courageous to do that. So when I started doing tour diaries with famous people, which meant, I would have a camera on my back, a tripod under my arm, my luggage in my other hand, and I'd be walking through airports like this, following them on their tours to get these great shows, I was really able to see, they're sleeping in very uncomfortable situations on tour buses. They're eating what they're given in different countries that might not be familiar to them. And they're going through a lot of discomfort for that money and that fame that they put themselves through. And so you really do see the other side of it. When I first met Destiny's Child, they were four very unfamous. They weren't famous. They were unfamous women. And it was because of their mother, Tina's, dedication and resilience on keeping them out there. Then Beyonce, you know, when I would be on tour with them, the first edition of Destiny's Child, if they were tired in the hotel at the end of a hard day filming, they would say, oh, we're tired now, we haven't finished all the shots, can we do some tomorrow? And Beyonce would be the one coming out going, no, come on ladies, this is on the rota for today, we don't want to do it tomorrow, let's get it up, let's G it up, come on ladies, let's go. And she would always be the one pushing for people to do things. And so you can see why she is the star that she is, because she was determined to get that work done. When I first met someone like Ed Sheeran was homeless and living on my friend's sofa. You know, he was homeless and living on someone's sofa. And now he is this global star worth millions to the industry. But people didn't see his come up. People just go, oh, you know, that white kid with ginger hair and freckles just sang a few songs and just made it big. That guy was homeless. He came into the industry. He was nice to everyone, and he genuinely is a lovely person. And he has made it from the sweat and blood and tears of his hard graft. So the one thing I've noticed about people who are famous, the thing that sets them aside is being good and kind to people, because people will lift you up and keep moving you forward if you are good. If you're not a liked person in the industry, when things become bad for you, people will just go, oh, well, I didn't like him anyway, so whatever. But when you are liked and people have your back in the industry, when things go wrong for you, there will be a cultural tribe there to protect you and lift you up and support you. And so resilience, treating people well, being consistently delightful, and doing the work and not being obnoxious. You know, the biggest stars that I work with, like Will Smith or Mariah Carey, they go around the room and they shake hands and say hello and look people in the eye. Everyone, from the cameraman to the producer to the presenter to the runner, they will shake their hand and say, hi, I'm Will, nice to meet you. And you know, when you're like, oh my God, I know you're Will, you don't need to say that, you know? But they do that at the start of the show and they do it at the end again. They'll go around and say, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And they do it to everyone. And so people leave and they go, wow, that person was really cool. I'd work with them again. And that's how these stars, these global stars, build up their reputations.
Wow, that's amazing. Just hearing the stories of Ed Sheeran, Beyonce, and again, it speaks to hard work. And hard work, I think people, and I think today I'm going away with the fact that hard work is a result of passion. If you're passionate about something, you'll be willing to do any and everything for that thing. You know, if it means Dr. Motsomane always said that about Mandela, that Mandela says this is an ideal that I'll be willing to die for. That passionate to a point where it doesn't matter. You don't even fear that, you know. And I think today, one of the things so far that I'm working away with is passion, hard work, and like you said, you spoke about the teams that they're in, the kindness, resilience, and those are the stories we don't hear about our stars, you know. And I like the fact that you spoke about how journalists sometimes are unfair, because I don't think it's most of the time, and how they are conditioned to always bring down the artist, whether it's an actor, whether even politicians, the people who are influential, people who are public figures in general, right? And how it's almost like you're conditioned to sort of be negative towards them and forget the human that this person at the end of the day is a human in your reporting, right? But I'm appreciative of that, because the second question I was going to ask you about this, which I think you've answered, was what are the craziest stories? What are the things that you think we should know about these stars that nobody really knows? You know? And I think you've touched on some of the stuff. So, but now I want to bring it back to Africa, because I know you did an interview I think in 2021 with one of the biggest brands in South Africa. They're flying the Amapiano flag high, the major league guys. Those guys are very, and there's people when it comes to brand and the people that actually they've put on as well in South Africa, whether it's a vocalistic, your Kamumpela, even helping their friend Casper tell a story of his brand. They say, this thing of you, take this and take, like, they've always been those guys that put people on and they seem from afar, they seem kind and stuff like that. How how was that interview for you and what are you thinking in terms of Amapiano? You guys receiving Amapiano in the UK, and interviewing people like David and African stars. What do you think? What do you see for you, in your humble opinion, in terms of Africa and the music industry? What do you think of us?
So I can't take credit for any of those interviews, whether it's been the Amapiano scene or whether it's been Davido or Wizkid. All of that is because I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people in my industry and circle who are really deeply entrenched in the African continent's culture, but also in South Africans culture and music and relevance. So in my circle, one of my friends Taponiswa Mavunga and her sister Danai have always been my pipeline that lead me into those. And like I said, I've been lucky enough to have a seat at the table where my friends who are in the culture will say to me, hey, this is the thing that's popping off. Could you consider doing an interview? And then I'm like that middle ground person with my editors saying, hey, these are the things that are popping off. Could we consider doing an interview with them? And so it depends on everyone in the culture and different pipelines to keep feeding information through, because ultimately you want to celebrate what's happening in different continents. And ultimately, Africa has been the continent that has been pillaged and looted and really, drained of every resource, whether it's been a energy resource or a cultural resource. The rest of the world has always taken from the African continent. So when you see the smaller countries across the African continent, whether it's Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, all these great artists and sounds that are coming from different places, you go, do you know what? Finally, maybe the world is open to recognizing the talent and investing in it and crediting it. So when we see things like Wakanda or Beyonce's album or Drake's latest album, they're all much more worldly now than they used to be. Because I remember when they would be very American focused, but now they have British and African influences all over them. So I think the world's starting to recognize that actually we should have been recognizing from day one. But I think now that you have the diaspora, you have younger African generations here in England, in America, they're starting to really champion their own culture and their home countries. And so when things like Amapiano come through, it comes through because those younger people here are going back to their homelands, their motherlands, whether that's Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and they're saying, this is what's happening in the motherlands, let's bring it back and make sure it's credited and recognized around the world. And, yeah, Amapiano was the sound of this whole year, I think, around Britain. We had Amapiano festivals, we had Amapiano parties. I mean, I feel like this last couple of summers has been really dominated by the Amapiano scene.
Yeah, it's amazing to see, especially from a boy from South Africa, because one of the things that we constantly and something that I'm passionate about, right, is, and I don't want to go too much, but it's the language thing where people will make you believe that if you write in your own language and speak about your stories, it will not land in Europe. It will not land in the United States, right? And seeing Amapiano being commercially successful, and these people are not speaking English in their songs. They are speaking South African languages, right? Zulu, and mostly Zulu and Tswana. I think mostly Zulu and Tswana and piano. And to see blow up like this, it proves a point that I've been telling the people all this time, because when I was in 2012, I remember I used to listen to a lot of I still do, South African hip hop. And my friends will call me Motswapo because there's a genre in South Africa called Motsomane, which is Tswana rappers. You know, they rap in their language. So every time I play in South Africa, it's Motsomane, because they listen to USA rappers only. So to see Amapiano and everything now blowing up, it's like sort of a vindication to say all those years and all those things that I've been saying are right, and they're coming. I've been telling people that, guys, let's respect, and to see. And I don't know if you guys know that this sound is made in the township. It's made in a shack. These kids or these people that are making it are in a shack. It's in the dust. If you go to those places and see where the sound comes from, you wouldn't believe. And these
No, I
are
would
people who
believe
just
it. I would believe it. Shall I tell you why I believe it? Because
because of the background.
Major League told me that, and also my my friend Taponiswar and Danai told me that, because they've been out there themselves and know. And what you're expressing there, Thuso, is the exact same vindication I felt when it happened with British grime and rap music, because for many years when I was first at MTV, all they playlisted was American hip hop and R&B, and I would keep saying, but guys, I'm going out to these things in London and there are thousands of young people there, and there's a huge audience for British black culture, and we never play it, and I can't see the connect. It doesn't make any sense. And people at work used to say to me, oh, Jasmine, British black music isn't that popular. There's a niche slot for it, or there's a specialist segment for it on a late night time slot on the radio or the TV. And I'd be thinking, none of this makes sense. I'm going out and I'm seeing huge thousands of young people dancing to, at the time it would have been, you know, Bashi, Tinchy Strider, Chipmunk, Tiny Temper, just loads and loads of different artists many years ago. So when we finally got British black music and culture into the mainstream here, it lay the path for other names like Stormzy and Dave and Jay Huss. And now when you watch the Brit Awards, our British black artists are the people that are leading those nominations and awards. And I imagine it's the same for you in South Africa, because Amapiano has kept its roots. It's come from grassroots. It's come from the struggle. And remember, none of this should surprise us, because when we were obsessed with American hip hop and R&B, well, that came from American grassroots and struggle. So if we liked that and we picked up their slanguage, because all the words that we use, all the slang that we use in everyday life now tends to have come from American hip hop culture. So we picked that up, and it was different to our ears. Even though they were speaking English, it was still different. So you shouldn't be too surprised when people are saying the Amapiano words and language that they don't understand, because it's music. It's the power of music to bring people into the culture. I hear people all over the UK Amapiano festivals this last year saying things in a different language that they have no idea what those lyrics mean. And it's no different from when I used to go on tour with Jay-Z and Eminem and, you know, anyone, Busta Rhymes. We would go to Japan, or we'd be in Bangkok, and those people didn't understand anything they were saying, but they were reciting the rap words of Jay-Z and Eminem. And when I'd interview Jay-Z and Eminem, they would say to me, wow, these people don't even speak English, but they're rapping my words to me. It's no different, right?
Wow, I don't, you know, those are the stories I don't know, we don't know. We assume that, I think, maybe conditioning and what we consume, because we consume so much of American culture and TV, we assume that everywhere in the world, everyone speaks English, which is not the case. Because I think in Spain, they speak Spanish. I see it with football. You just reminded me that. So to hear that even Jay-Z, Japanese people were like, we might not hear what you're saying, but we vibe with this. We get the cadence, we get the flow, we get, like, we can sort of, we don't know what it is, but we resonate with it. It's the first time that I'm hearing, and I can't wait.
And then I'm the one with the camera going around filming these Japanese fans, or, you know, fans across different continents that don't speak English. And so I'm saying to them, you know, why are you such a big Eminem fan, or why are you such a big Busta Rhymes fan? And they'd be like, not able to even reply to me in English, but word for word, when I'm filming them, they can recite the whole track, right? So that shows you the power of music and lyrical rhythm surpasses language when you're speaking.
Crazy how our stories, I think assumptions. Today I'm finding out that we assume a lot, especially in South Africa. You think there, it's way easier, it's much better, and people are having it easy. And to hear the stories of your Stormzy's and the grime, and the people who do drill that side, they have the same stories as the hip hop here. Because with hip hop here, I remember with your, and it's crazy. It's crazy because Caesar Dromo was the one who was instrumental with playing hip hop music on MTV, and I had him do an interview the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's why I was seeing so and so. That's why, because when I was young, it was very difficult to see your favorite rapper's music video. You would see, if you're lucky, because you go to school twice in a day. I would literally wait to just see one SA hip hop music video, right? And it was such a niche, and we had our own events, and we're not so popular. And to see it from 2014 starting to grow, and now as this mainstream, it's big, and the biggest artists in the land are, and the most successful. And when you look, and I think it's all around, because not even in hip hop, in media, the biggest and the most successful, the one that brings the most money, is in hip hop, and his name is Casper Nyovest. And thinking back to when I used to struggle to see a music video on TV, to now where it became easy. And I don't know, it brought me satisfaction when hip hop started growing and it started being everywhere. And people now know this rapper. And I'm like, I remember when this rapper was on the come up. I remember when this rapper was at Beckley, because I knew where the culture was and where the culture was going. And to hear that we have similar stories brings me joy. I don't know what to, but it's like, it makes me happy. And to say, oh, our stories are not different. We're just in different geographical location. And if we stick it out and are patient and resilient, we'll get the same result.
Yeah, remember, everyone, I think, culture follows history. And in history, everything that hasn't been Western has been oppressed and not allowed to shine. And so whilst we're all demanding rights and equality and diversity for everyone across business, that is obviously going to affect culture too. And when you're proud of your culture and people start bringing in their own accents, their own catchphrases, their own local dialect, that is going to make people have a sense of unity and pride that will then rise up. And, you mentioned Sizwe, whenever I've seen him on, over the years at MTV Awards or anything, what you don't see is behind the scenes, he is always championing and advocating for all those South African artists and names. And, behind the scenes, he is fighting that fight. And that's all I've ever seen.
Yeah, but he did an interview and he made me realize, because I've known him, I think for me to love and want to do this, he's one of the reasons. I used to listen to the hip hop show on radio when they were doing YFM. And I don't forget this day when Drake dropped 5 a.m. in Toronto and he was breaking down the lyrics. A lot of y'all are standing, and that's the movement. And it's like, that's a reference to Kanye. And as they were doing what they were doing, it grew a passion. I don't know, he made me laugh.
Oh, your Wi-Fi is gone again. Your Wi-Fi is gone again.
Presenting with school, they were putting these artists are now big. They're giving the platform on Wi-Fi to come rap and restart. And oh, my Wi-Fi is gone again. All right.
Oh, there you are. That's better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, my Wi-Fi now using. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm using my data now. My Wi-Fi
okay, cool. I was like this. I was like, I can't hear you. You're frozen.
Because I could hear you say your Wi-Fi is gone again. But yeah, so I was just speaking about how your Thuso has played a huge role in putting on a lot of these successful people behind the scenes, and he hardly speaks about it and helping them behind the scenes with what to do, how to do it. And yeah, what you're saying, I didn't know about when he's there, but I'm grateful for people like him who really, when they see genuine talent and they are advocate for this hip hop culture, which is a very everywhere you go, and it starts off small and now it's boom, it's impacting the country. But I want to come back to you less about the culture. What would you say has contributed to your longevity in the game?
What's contributed to my longevity in the game would probably be surrounding myself with peers in my industry who are like-minded. So we advocate for the same things. We push for the same artists. We push to rise and raise our, fellow artists and creatives to the top. And I honestly think, because remember, you can be really talented. You could be the best journalist in the world. You could be the best person at a record label or the best person in a marketing company. But if you operate alone, like a little island, you'll find it a struggle. It's really hard to make things happen when you are by yourself. But if you surround yourself, I call it my own personal board of directors. It's like a board of directors or a cultural tribe. And by cultural tribe, I literally mean, if I said to you, Thuso, I said, you've got 60 seconds to say what you're about. And you say, hey, my name's Jasmine Dotiwala and I'm about hip hop culture, R&B. I like Nando's spicy chicken. I like classical music. I also like this. I also like that. In 60 seconds, you could tell someone all you're about. And my cultural tribe, we're all similar in that we're trying to raise the game in the culture. We like going out and helping young people to rise. We like amplifying certain voices. So I surround myself from the beginning with these people. And it came because actually MTV were having a load of redundancies. I was moved from MTV News to lead MTV Base. And at the time, I didn't want the job. I really loved being in MTV News and traveling internationally and interviewing various artists and flying around. It was a great, great job. And then I was moved across to MTV Base. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, even though I love this music, when you do for your job 100% of what you love, your social life and your work life becomes too mixed and then you don't enjoy it as much. So I started having dinner with a group of people that I'd spoken to over the years, and I'd said, look, I need to make MTV Base a success. We know British Black artists are doing the most out there and they're not getting recognized, they're not getting signed, they're not getting credited, they're not getting to headline festivals. What can we do? And I knew that I think there were about 20 of us at the start. These other people are other people at record labels or radio stations or companies that I'd had the same conversation with over the years. So what led to my longevity was surrounding myself with this same group of people. We were now all pushing together. We were rising in our various jobs, and we were now decision makers in our various companies. And so when someone says she works at a record label and her artist is getting no play on Radio 1, we can say, right, I'm going to playlist her. You're going to playlist her. You're going to make a film with her soundtrack on it. You're going to do an advert. And so she's going to be on all the buses for the sports brands. And before you know it, people go, wow, that artist is on everywhere. Maybe we should playlist them. So we were kind of helping to catapult and come together and strengthen and support different British Black artists so that they would get to where they're getting. And we know that the higher our peers reach, the higher we reach, because we're like a movement moving all together. It's like the Little Wayne lyric, I'm like lasagna, I move inside, the G moves in silence. Remember that lyric? So remember, do you know what I mean? Which one I mean?
I used to listen to him. I forgot. And like he used to release a lot of songs. I'm sure my cousin who's gonna watch this, I'm sure he loves it to this day. He would go there.
Well, the moral of that story is when you try and champion people publicly, there'll always be some haters who will try and stop it or stop your progress or stop the journey. But actually, when you move in silence together as a group, sometimes you can make things happen behind the scenes. And then you sit back and you watch as it happens and you go, yeah, we did that. So that would be one of the secrets to my longevity. But never forget, all of us who look like we've got longevity are clinging on by our fingertips because of the passion that we have. Nothing is easy and as smooth as it seems. I know for people from the outside, they go, oh, that person's in a high role. They've been in the industry for years. Every single person I know, whether they're a CEO of a company or a VP, they're all clinging on by their fingertips. They're working hard with the passion, and then they make it happen.
Wow, that's amazing. You've surrounded yourself with the right people. I guess that's what I'm getting. And I wanna go. I just wanna go back to the Western. You spoke about Western. That everything that's not Western, it's hard for people to receive or consume, especially in the Western world that we are in. And I think that's one of my fights as well, where I'm fighting this Western influence. I'm not saying I love it and some of the things they've taught and stuff like that, but to a point where, you know, it it makes people think using your own dialect or you being South Africa, you're not as South African, you're not as great as someone that's from Europe or someone that's from America, you know. And for me, that's one of the things that we globally as people should conscientize young people from. What do you call, and you said you don't like the word diversity. You said underrepresented.
Underrepresented groups, underrepresented people. We're all
Yeah,
underrepresented, aren't we?
yeah. So for me, one of the things I want to do is conscientize, even because I'm a believer. I'm a believer of Christ. So I'm even within the church. I'm trying to do away with that thing of looking towards American preachers and thinking everything that, because we grew up consuming American culture and everything was American, that we lose ourselves and think if I don't do it, copy them, there's nothing valuable about my culture. We move away from our cultures, our dialects, what we've been taught, you know, who we are authentically at our core, right? And I think for me, one of the things I'm passionate about, and it's a message that I fought with a lot of people in disagreements, and I've lost friendship because of that passion of saying this thing of you guys feeding us American culture. I don't like it, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the streets, wherever. Like, it's something people know that I would say, even when it comes to SA hip hop, I'd say, this guy sounds, this thing sounds too American, and I can't relate to it, and I can't really listen to it. But when someone is speaking English, like even in the South African accent, I can sort of, I don't know, for some reason I lean towards them. It's not something that I think of, but the minute you sound like out there, you throw me off. But if you can mix that with what we're doing here, for me the formula works. Always there's a friend of mine who, they were listening to a song. So his little brother was like, "Yo, this album is dope. Thuso must listen to it." And his little brother was like, "Nah, Thuso's not gonna listen to this. He's gonna think it sounds too American." And I was laughing.
Interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because remember, now that I'm a bit more grown up, I don't see anyone as being the bad guy. America is a huge country. Over the years, it's been brilliant at developing and nurturing global superstars, whether that's in music or movies. And because of that, the globe was fed a diet of American culture. And so we all, you know, there were rappers in the UK too who used to rap with American accents, because when you first saw hip hop come out, if all the big stars are American, naturally the thinking was, well, if we try and do that, we could be successful too. But slowly and surely, people become aware of their own local pride, their own dialect, their own accents, and they start making what started off, well, it didn't start off being an American genre, remember? It started off in Jamaica, actually. It was when the Jamaican DJs were toasting and rapping over the sound systems. And because of Kool Herc being brought up in America, it became an American hip hop sounding owned genre. but ultimately it came from Jamaica. So when you think about the style of toasting and rapping from Jamaica, and then the beats and the rhythms that have always been African, it's going to be only a matter of time before those things go back to the roots and the culture of where it started. And so I don't see anyone as the bad guy now. Like, if you want to rap in whatever accent you want to rap in and people like it, that's your business. But I think we can see now that everyone's starting to take pride in their own local nations, local communities. People are singing and rapping in their own styles. And this is why all the big companies, from the TV companies to the record labels, they are embracing and investing in local sounding content. So I think we're getting there. The world is definitely healthier. People choosing to challenge each other on what's right, what's relevant, what's authentic. I think all of those unhealthy conversations that used to be seen as taboo, uncomfortable conversations, are actually healthy, and they're helping to change the status quo.
I think I agree with you. I always say that, and I always tell the younger ones to me that there's some of the things that you can relate to that I can't. Sometimes don't take my opinion because I'm older and there's a type of hip hop or the type of song that I listen to. I'm not saying don't listen. And I'm always clear because I grew up under people who made this is the way, do it this way, and there's no other way. So I'm too careful of saying, I'm saying if it works for him, it works for him. But I won't listen to it because that's not the type of music that I like personally. But I know that people will be happy to consume that music or whatever the person is doing, because it'll be unfair of us to say no, those people are some say they're still figuring out themselves, and some will be successful at doing that because they sound like that and they'll do it big and stuff like that. But going off topic again, because we coming in and out from from longevity to back to the hip hop scene, because I thought we were done with that. I wanted to ask about some of the greatest or some of the mistakes that you have made and that you have learned. What are some of the mistakes that you would love to share with us that you've made and learned from? And what have you learned?
Well, no one likes talking about mistakes, but we all make them. And the one thing that I say to young people that I'm mentoring is, we will always make mistakes, especially when we're younger and we're first starting out in our careers. And when you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is try and hide it or hope it goes away and not mention anything. The quickest way to deal with a mistake is, as soon as it's happened, go, oh my God, hands up. My error, I messed up, my bad, how can I fix this? And the quicker you do that, the quicker teams start to trust you and say, okay, they own their mistakes and therefore I trust them. Because the minute you start defending things or trying to blame other people, you'll get caught out, and it just makes you not a very nice, authentic, honest person. And so some of the biggest mistakes I've made are, I mentioned one of them earlier to you. So we talked about on the Big Breakfast, I had been so distracted by the famous people in the room that I hadn't got the props ready for the very next show of the segment. And therefore I was publicly humiliated. I never did that again. So that was a huge mistake, very public. We still laugh about it now, me and Chris Evans, the presenter who basically turned the camera on me. Another mistake I made was when I was at MTV for many years. I had made a program about the MTV EMA Awards red carpet, and it was about the fashion that all the pop stars were wearing. And I'd interviewed a lot of very famous designers about the fashion that, you know, J-Lo, Christina Aguilera, Jay-Z, Beyonce, everybody were wearing. The show was designers like Dolce & Gabbana, Donatella Versace. There were a few British designers. I did the show, and I had them watch the awards show, and they had to critique what everybody was wearing. And when the show was finished and edited, I did all the copies. My boss signed it off. The lawyers signed it off. It had been dubbed into many different languages for MTV Worldwide. And it was just before Christmas, and it was going off, and I was about to go skiing with my friend in Aspen. And suddenly I got a call from Dolce & Gabbana's PR guy, who was also my friend. And he said, I'm really sorry. He said, Dolce & Gabbana loved the show, but they don't think they can let it air because they are so critical of some of the pop stars that they work with. It would spoil their relationships with the pop stars. And I said, but guys, the show's already been edited. It's gone out. It's gone all over the globe. It's airing from tomorrow. And they said, sorry, you can't run it. And the mistake that I had made is, because Dolce & Gabbana's PR guy was my friend, I had never chased the release form. So whenever you speak to anybody on camera, you get a release form saying that you can use their interview for television. And because at the time he said to me, oh, let me read it, I'll send it back to you tomorrow. I think we were still using fax machines at that time. He said, I'll fax it back to you. So I said, fine. And I never thought twice about it. And I completely let it go. And there was no release form. So now I didn't have permission to actually put that show out around the world. And I had to go like this to my boss and say, oh my God, I've just really majorly screwed up. And this is what's happened. And luckily, because I'd added so much value to my company, my boss trusted me, I was likable, he knew that it was a genuine error, I wasn't fired for it or reprimanded, and we had to bring all the shows back, and I had to delay my Christmas break and spend another week at work, and I had to re-edit the whole show with my editors, but I never ever made that mistake again. So now when I interview people, the release form is what's done before the camera even presses record. So that was one of my biggest mistakes.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a lot of lesson for a lot of creators who will make sure, because some of us maybe didn't have that information or didn't know about that. So I think as we head towards the end, which I think will be my third last question, is that what have you found matters most in life?
Wow. That's a very deep question. What has mattered most in life? I mean, if I could talk to my younger self or any younger people listening to Under Construction with you, I would say when you are young, you are ambitious, you want to make something of yourself, you want to make a name for yourself, you want to be successful. But what I have learned is, honestly, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but there is nothing more important than family and friends and having good people around you. So when you're young, you don't mind missing birthdays and weddings and things of people that are your loved ones. But as you become older, you realize that tomorrow is never promised. And therefore, every day that you wake up is a blessing. And the most important thing is family, friends, and loved ones, and making sure that everyone is happy and of good health. And that doesn't mean surrounding yourself with riches and owning fabulous things. If there's one thing I would definitely say is it's never about owning designer wear or flash expensive clothes. The most important thing is having a roof over your head, being warm, having shelter, having food. I know it sounds ridiculously cliched, but honestly, as you get older and you realize that that person who had it all suddenly lost everything because of health reasons or something like that, you really do start to put things in perspective. So the most important thing is, being the best person that you can be, and knowing that there is a universe out there and there is something called karma. And the more good you put out in the world, the more you help elevate other people, the more that comes back to you, and obviously vice versa.
Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. I have no words to add. I have nothing to subtract, but I wouldn't know because you have lived. So, guys, she said it to us because it's also to me. Certain things I don't even know how to say after they said that what matters the most are the simplest things in life: family, shelter, and food. Right. So, thank you for that. We're heading towards the end, and there's my favorite question that I like of Under Construction is saying, if you had to describe your life right now using a song, I don't know if you watched or what, but I know people get shocked, and it's one of my favorite ones. If you had to use a song to describe your life right now, what song would it be? And please sing the chorus for us.
Oh my God. There's no way on earth you're getting me singing anything, because trust me, I am tone deaf. I have worked with musicians my whole life, but if there's one thing I know, my lane is not singing. I cannot sing. So I'm putting that out now. And if you're, honestly, the minute I would try to sing, everybody would click off. So you don't want me to sing, your audience will leave. I would say one song that's always been a bit of a theme song in my life coming up with my career is Jay-Z's Give It To Me. You know, I'm a hustler, baby. Yeah, I'm a hustler. I just want you to know it ain't where I am, it's where I'm about to go. That has always been in the back of my mind for when I'm in meetings, when I'm getting to the next step, when I'm aspiring for my next step. Like, that's always been in the background. But over the years, that's changed to a Beyonce song, which is, oh my God, what's the Beyonce song that I keep playing all the time? Because her new album is out now. I'm all distracted, but it's not on her new album. Hold on. What's the Beyonce song? Give me a second. Oh, it's one about being really happy. Hold on. Let me think. I was singing it literally last night. You know, when you're just like, what was it? What was it? Oh God. It's not coming. Hold on a minute. Give me a second. You're going to have to edit this. Let me find it. Bring the beat in. Baby, baby.
I don't know Beyonce's song. I'm clueless. I would help, but I don't know them.
Wait a minute.
It's
I'm
like,
gonna oh God. Okay, hold on. God, I always sing this song and now I can't remember what the title is. Bring the beat in. Love on Top. Love on Top. Beyonce's Love on Top is what Beyonce's Love on Top is the song that really summarizes my life right now. It's like happy, it's joyous. I sing it every morning. But since her album's come out, I've been distracted by Alien Superstar and all the other Cuff It songs because me and my godchildren have been doing the Cuff It challenge for TikTok. So I'm completely distracted. But Love on Top is the song that was in my mind for the last year.
Love on Top by Beyonce. Jasmine, I think that's a wrap from us. Thank you for coming. What a privilege to have you sharing
What
knowledge.
a privilege to speak to you. Honestly, who I am and what I represent is nothing compared to some of my friends who are really deeply entrenched in South African pop culture. So if you ever need some names, obviously, you know, Sizwe, Dylan Khan is at MTV and Viacom, Taponiswa Mavunga and Danai Mavunga are between here and the continent. And honestly, those are the people you should be following and pulling through.
Oh, thank you very much. I will speak much more on that. So I just wanted to say thank you and for the great work and the impact, because for me, I believe in impact, and that's why I try to live for purpose and impact, and the impact that you've had in the industry, the long career, the example that you are before us, those who are trying to get in. Yeah, and thank you for just coming and affording us your time, your precious time, and yeah, we look forward to having more conversations in the future and seeing what God has in store for you and what more you have in store. So thank you very much. And to everyone who's watching, this is our last episode of Under Construction SA for 2022. Guys, we have to rest. Me, I'm tired. I won't lie to you. I'm not gonna come say, yo, rest, my feet. I need to rest. This is the last episode. It's been good. This is episode 25. We did 25 episodes. If you had asked me at some point, let's say, would we do this because of a lot of things that happened, I'd have said, nah. I almost at some point quit. And to have seen the people that come on and the guests, the caliber of the guests that have changed and shifted from last year to now, I can always say it's God's grace, and by you, and we keep growing because of you, and you guys watch, you recommend, you share, you subscribe. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you in 2023. My name is Thuso Motsomane. We are signing out. Bye.